please rise. His Honour, Judge Chandler presiding. You may be seated. Case 67, the State versus David Bannister.
You are Mr. David Bannister?
That's correct, Your Honour.
And what does the defendant plead?
Not guilty, Your Honour.
Because this case represents the first of its kind in this country, I expect both the prosecution and the defence to take particular care in the presentation of their evidence and arguments to this court. I expect that all parties concerned understand the special nature of this case. Essentially, we are dealing with a law that has been on the statute books for decades, and in some countries, even centuries. Up until now, these laws have never been repealed, and therefore can still be enforced under existing state legislation. So, counsel, we find ourselves with a very unique challenge.
Yeah, a strange thing happened to me a while back. I was working on my farm on Sunday, like any other Sunday, and my friends Mike and Nick turned up. Actually, they're policemen, and they called in to warn me. And it was a friendly warning, you know, that I needed to take this new Sunday law seriously. I mean, you know, they mentioned that it was a law that was enforced by the government, and that it was good for the community and the country to have this one day set aside. You know, when they left, I listened to them out, you know. But when they left, man, was I angry. A law that's actually stripping our liberty of conscience and freedom of choice. Who is behind this, is what I asked back then.
I had been booked into a Bible Lands tour, and a friend of ours, or a friend of the family, Professor Fletcher, had encouraged me to meet up with Jim Aravito. He was a history researcher.
Mr. Aravito?
Yeah.
You've been expecting me.
Oh, you must be the one that Professor...
Fletcher.
That's right, Fletcher. Listen, there's no way we can talk around here. Why don't we go someplace that's a little quieter? Follow me.
But Professor Fletcher warned me that Jim may be reluctant to actually take me on because he feared his own life while researching this information on this particular Sunday law.
Now, how long have you been looking for me?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. I'm sorry. I hope you haven't wasted your time.
I hope not.
Now, let's get down to business. Now...
My name is Dave.
No, don't mention your name, whatever you do. I'm sure that we're under surveillance here.
Surveillance?
Yes, there's a fellow been following me. I'm going to have to give you a fictitious name so we can talk. How about Terry? Is that okay? Now, Terry, what is it you think I can do for you?
Well, I want to come with you on this research on the new law.
No, it's absolutely impossible. Absolutely impossible.
Why not? I can be of a lot of help. And company.
No, it's not that. I'm sure I could use the company to help. It's just that this particular project is dangerous and I've got to do it alone. Terry, there's something you don't understand. Something that I'm just beginning to understand. And that's how dangerous thing is. That, you know, this isn't just a traffic ticket. This isn't even a federal offense type of thing. What it is an international power that would think nothing of just destroying you and your family.
The prosecution may now present its opening remarks.
Thank you, Your Honor. This case involves one of the most important developments in the modern age, where God can be brought into law and order. The insidious spread of lawlessness, terrorism and immorality has been tearing society apart. It is now time for the citizen to be accountable to a higher power. Only in this way can society hope to alleviate its ills. The primary purpose of Sunday legislation is to create social cohesion. Your Honour, the family has disintegrated before our eyes. It is the single most important reason why we have so much crime and social disruption. Our politicians and religious leaders have united together to provide our citizens with a stable and just society. We cannot have this process undermined by minority groups or individuals such as David Bannister. It is our civic duty to give our full support to this vital initiative.
Listen, Terry, I'll take you on one condition, and that is if I have to ask you to do anything, or even if I have to ask you to go home, you'll do it without any question. Is that understood?
Thank you, Mr. Arboleda.
Don't thank me too soon.
I remember when we were in Italy, and I wanted to go and watch a game of soccer, and but I always found that Jim always protected his day of worship, and I have to respect him for that. And as this trip went on and on and on, I started to see that why he was protecting his day. And he didn't force that on me. I had a choice. I could have gone to the soccer game. But for him, he just always said, well, maybe on Sunday would be a better day for him.
You ready?
Yep, ready as I'll ever be.
Where are we off to today?
Well, today we're going to go to one of the oldest and the largest of the ancient Italian churches.
Hey, Jim, this is not the Vatican.
No, this is the Chiesa Valdesi. It's a descendant of the Waldensian Church. We can talk about that later. Let's go over and have a look at it, shall we? Terry, why don't you wait here for a minute? Look at this mosaic over the door. See what you can make out of that. And I'm going to step in here for a minute.
I can't make anything of it.
Well, let's just step over to the park. We can't talk here. And I'll tell you what it means. Remember the candle on it?
Mm.
That candle represents the Chiesa Valdesi, or the Waldensian Church. The candlestick represents the church itself, while the book underneath it represents the Bible. The 7 stars over the top of it represent the 7 valleys of the Waldenses in the mountains that we're going to visit.
What about the writing?
Well, one of the words was lux, the second one was lucet, and the third one was tenebras. Lux means the light, lucet means to shine, and tenebras means darkness. So it means the light that shines in darkness. You see, the Waldensian Church continued to teach the truths of the Bible throughout the period of the Dark Ages when it was outlawed. And that's what that whole symbol represents.
Did you get what you wanted?
Boy, I sure did, Terry. Look at these. I got 2 authoritative books on the history of the 2 branches of Christianity and the war going on between them.
2 branches.
Yeah, there's 2 branches of Christianity. You see, in the early centuries of Christianity, the church broke into 2 different movements. Each one had their own Bible. Each one had their own doctrines. And each one of them had their own way of dealing with people who disagreed with them. In fact, one of those branches, Terry, is responsible for this law and for your arrest.
Which one?
Well, you study what they teach, and you study what they do, and you compare it to the Bible. And then, Terry, you'll have to come to your own conclusions on that, because that's what we're here for. Listen, I'd like to take you over to the Roman Forum, and while we're there, I'll explain a few things to you.
Would the prosecution now present the charges against David Bannister?
David Bannister has repeatedly ignored the importance of Sunday legislation by continuing his work activities on Sunday, and thereby offends the sensitivities of his God-fearing neighbours and community. The prosecution demands that David Bannister receive an appropriate penalty for his disruptive behaviour in breaking this law.
Defence?
Your Honour, David Bannister here is no criminal. He has no criminal record whatsoever. He is a good, hard-working citizen. The defence will simply demonstrate that this is an antiquated law. It has no relevance to society whatever, and it ought to be abolished.
In determining a fair judgment for Mr. Bannister, I expect counsel to not stray from the facts of the case. The historic issues of this case are far too complex for this small community court to solve. I expect counsel to tread very carefully.
Yeah, I drifted in and out of different feelings. Being overwhelmed with a sense of purpose. Yet, other times, it defied all common sense.
Boy, this place is something, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know why I brought you here, Terry? Well, I mentioned back there at the Chiesa Valdesi that there were 2 branches of Christianity in the early centuries. One of them was Roman Christianity. You know what that one was?
You mean Catholicism?
Yes, Catholicism. That's the largest family of Christianity. Well, before we can understand Roman Christianity, we really have to understand the mind and the culture that it grew up in. And that was this, Rome. Now, if you noticed as we went along through the forum there, that there were many different types of architecture. I showed you the Doric columns and the Ionic and the Corinthian columns. And the domes, the domes came from as far away as Syria. And the pillars originated in Assyria and Persia. And the layout of many of these temples came from Egypt. Every one of these things was borrowed